it's quite interesting because I was reading it right in the thick of the task in hand. There was an article in the Telegraph newspaper. I've identified myself as a Telegraph reader. I've just realised I've outed myself. So in the Telegraph, there was a really interesting article that said, where's the kind of spirit that's engendered in wartime? And the historian, I can't remember his name, the particular journalist, a feature writer, but he delighted on the Spitfire challenge, where Churchill needed Spitfires and Hurricanes, and he needed them fast, and the existing MOD-based procurement processes and supply process couldn't give him his aircraft fast enough. So he phoned up Lord Beaverbrook, who was a solid businessman, and said, "You're the kind of guy that can organise people to come and do things." So Beaverbrook took the challenge on and phoned around a bunch of like-minded individuals, industrialists who he knew would rally around the challenge. And they got together and just got to grips with the whole Spitfire and Hurricane manufacture, stopped at nothing. If they needed parts in the middle of the night, they phoned people up, got them out of bed, say, if we're out of bed in the middle of the night on this mission, you should be too, and drove like a coach and horses through the process and got the Spitfires and Hurricanes on time. And two really interesting things about it is that Beaverbrook had commandeered the top guy of the Ford Motor Company in the UK onto his group, and we've done exactly the same thing because Graham Hoare, first-class engineer, is inside the consortium with his sleeves rolled up, and he's chairman of Ford of Britain. So, but he's in there as an engineer and bringing the Ford company's, motor company's resources to bear. So that's a really interesting parallel. And the other thing is that the report said that those involved found the whole process exhilarating because cutting all the noise out, getting on with the job was richly rewarding in terms of pace. And I think once it was the most exciting time of my life, I think was one of the comments from the article. And it certainly felt like that for us. I think if you asked any of the people inside the core of the consortium have been working at this since day one, I think we'd all describe the experience as life-changing because it's been, the intensity, with a grave national mission, which very fortunately the mission, we didn't end up with people queuing up outside of hospital and the curve flattened out a bit, but, we're building ventilators now for long-term resilience, which is a great place to be. But, that wasn't the case at the beginning. And the intensity of that was unbelievable. Pace of work, 18, 20-hour days for the first 3 to 4 weeks. We worked 7 days a week. But the kind of camaraderie and sense of purpose, so getting around that national challenge engendered an incredible team spirit because there was a sense that we were all in this together. So, this kind of daring do, finest hour stuff, many parallels with the sort of wartime effort. And it goes to show that if you've got a national emergency and the right people responding to it, you can do some quite incredible things. Yeah, sure. Because the enormity of the task, having taken it on, as is often the case, the devil's in the detail, and we had a number of huge challenges. But because we got on the roll and we're absolutely committed to it, and we just brought a lot of resource and some very capable people to bear to fix the problems. We had some. Just one example. One of the devices contained a semiconductor chip which we needed to access, and there were no available stocks around the world because it's a relatively old chip. And of course, we needed to replicate this to maintain the integrity of the specification. And so normally that would be a showstopper, and everybody go, God, that's going to take months to do it. But with the support of people like McLaren, with all of their connections in the electronics world, we got a hold of the data and got a semiconductor fab to commit time to it, and we got the parts in weeks, very few weeks, and took that part off what you describe as the critical path. So it wasn't a showstopper at all. It was just, you know, another job of work to do. But that's the sort of thing, like, you know, like a really difficult time when crisis could be a showstopper, but then seeing tremendous personal management engineering effort applied to fix the problem. And that's really when we have had sticky moments. We've just brought best quality people, bright, really bright people with lots of capability, and empowered them to fix the problem. And, you know, they found it quite energizing. Okay, I'll get on with it. What might seem almost impossible under normal circumstances has become possible. And we found that can-do spirit, even when the job looks really difficult, has like spread like a kind of positive infection throughout the whole enterprise. And I mean, there's probably 5,000 people involved now in the whole process. And it's fascinating, without making a conscious effort to drive the culture, because we just haven't had time. We've just been getting on with the job. The culture that we formed inside the core of the enterprise is spread right out to the very edges. So I was up at Broughton Airbus build facility, where we've set up ventilator sub-assembly facilities. So we're making the absorber and the flow meter there in a purpose-built facility, which is fantastic. It was put up in 3 weeks. Amazing from start to finish. And there's a production facility manned on 3 shifts, well, more than 3 shifts actually. It's 550 people multi-shifting up there. And I went up there to have a look around and sort of meet and greet and you know, give people a bit of moral support. I didn't really need it because they're so focused on the job and so committed. But the far reaches of that assembly facility, talking to engineers and the fitting staff who were making wings a few weeks ago, but are now snagging and putting ventilators together and sorting out, you know, process flow issues. The same spirit was evident amongst those people as has been engendered in the core, and we haven't made any conscious effort to drive that culture across the, you know, the organization. It's an assembly of different companies, and yet it's taken on a profound culture of its own, without a big town hall event and, you know, here's our new strategy and here's our new corporate values, and, you know, all that stuff that companies normally do. We've managed to get to the far reaches of this enterprise with many people we've never even met or seen before. And yet that culture's there at what you described, the coalface, and it's quite extraordinary. About that, I mean, there's a job of work to be done, but already we're starting to read some of that learning into our own organisations. And it's kind of difficult if you haven't lived through it, but carrying those messages of the spirit of collaboration. And I know that Ford is thinking that same way, because, you know, this week, Dagenham facility, where we're also building ventilator assemblies, Dagenham's starting to get into the process of going back to work, and Ford are looking to bring many of the learning points from that experience, some just practical, about the fact that we've set up 7 new production facilities in an entirely COVID supportive manner. So all the things about distance, you know, social distancing, and making sure that there's only one way to walk around the factory, don't bump into each other. People can work safely in the workplace with adequate shielding, and, you know, canteen facilities, you know, everybody's separated in an appropriate way, and even just the sort of flow of people through the restrooms and toilet facilities is, you know, so all of that learning, it's been able to be picked up immediately to help get people back to work. But then the cultural aspects of that sort of can-do spirit, also that learning's been taken from there as well. And I know that Ford are really keen not to lose that with their staff. So many of them, of course, will move off from making ventilators back into the production facility and take those messages with them. So we're determined not to lose that, and at the moment we're thinking about ways of how to bottle it all up and not say sell it on, but make it available for others to inspect and have a look at. You do realise at times like this that engineering is really, it's the kind of fundamentals of modern living, and I think we've all sensed the sort of the vulnerability of our lives and how we operate, and many things grind to a halt. You realise because everything you touch is virtually an engineered product, and we're sorely missing many of those freedoms which are brought about by engineered products. And this is an example of what industry can do. Without being pressed, it volunteered itself for this. Is a fine sign of the quality of our industry in the UK and the spirit of the engineers within it, and what can be achieved with a bunch of people. We've compressed 18 months to 2 years of industrial effort into 4 to 6 weeks, and that's an extraordinary thing to achieve, and a cause for some celebration. And we're hoping that it acts as an inspiration to current engineers who might be feeling a bit down, or who have long held a sense that engineers don't get recognised. I won't say I've ever subscribed to the engineering recognition victim support group, I call it. So I don't subscribe to that, because it's much better to just get on with the job and show what can be done. But I think this really shows what real engineers, people who are able to create something from nothing, industrialize something on this scale by using their skills, resources and wherewithal. It's a fantastic thing to see, and I think hopefully inspires current engineers and youngsters who might want to have a look at this as a career, because although it's been for a 60-year-old, it's been an exhausting process for the past few weeks, working quite so hard when I was supposed to be retiring. It's been hugely energizing, and what's not to like about it?